Hi, welcome back, guys. This is your friend, the Mama Fanfics, back with amazing fanfiction. This series of what if Deku inherited gamma rays and became Hulk. Izuku sat nestled in his mother's arms as the family was transported to the holding facility, where they would stay until the morning. He awoke in a cold and sterile room, still in her arms. She had fallen asleep, but her grip on him had not slipped. Izuku couldn't speak as he stared up at her sleeping form. She had dark circles under her eyes and looked like she had been crying a lot. Izuku sat there, not wanting to move, as he didn't want to wake her. He held out as long as he could till he whispered a single word. Mama. Inko's eyes opened, and she looked down at him. He watched as her entire face lit up and pulled him so tight. I knew you were alive, she whispered as the tears began to fall. They all told me I was wrong, but I knew it. In my heart, I knew you wouldn't leave me. Mom, what happened? He said. He was so confused. He woke up in a cave and met the Yanagis. Then he was in a ranger station, and now he had no idea where he was. That is a long story, baby, she replied, stroking his hair. Honestly, I don't know all the answers, but we will find them together. When he began to try and sit up, he could feel her tense for a minute, but she helped him up, keeping her arm around him. He didn't know, but she feared he would disappear like a dream if she didn't hold on to him. Are the Yanagis okay? He asked. Yes, they are just fine, Inko replied. They are out there talking to Kaina, the lady in the back of the truck. Izuku didn't know who Kaina was, but he knew the lady in the truck. The lady with the pretty hair? Yes, the lady with the pretty hair, she responded. Where are we? Izuku said, looking around the cold, sterile room. I don't like it here. Can we go home? Inko bit her lip. Not right now, honey. There are things we need to figure out first. Like what? Like, how did you end up on that mountain or in that cave? She said, rubbing his back. Oh, that makes sense, he responded, looking down. Can I see Dad and maybe Ryuko? I want to tell her and her parents thank you. Maybe after they are done, Inko said. Thankfully, they didn't have to wait too long before, in what seemed like magic to Izuku, a wall opened up, and suddenly, there was a door there, and in walked Riko and her parents, followed by his dad and the lady with the nice hair. Inko held her breath when he got free. She let it go when he didn't disappear as he ran to his father and hugged him. Hitachi just scooped Izuku into his arms, a few tears escaping his control as he held his boy tight. I thought I lost you, boy, he whispered. We were so worried. I'm sorry, Dad, he said instinctively. Why are you sorry? He asked, pulling back and smiling at his precious son. Izuku opened his mouth a few times and shrugged. I don't know. This made his father laugh, as well as the Yanagis. Izuku blushed and squirmed free. He turned to them and bowed. Thank you for saving me. Think nothing of it, Shinobu responded. We are just glad you are home safe with your family. Yes, that is the most important thing, Emiko added. Ryuko hugged him. You may not have been evidence of the supernatural, but I am glad to have met you, Izuku. Izuku hugged her back. For some reason, her hug made him feel safe. Once he stepped back, he just hugged Kaina, to her surprise. Thank you, he managed as he began to cry. I was so scared, then. Suddenly, his breath started to get ragged as the memories came flooding into the truck. The monsters, the villains, everything. He released her leg and stumbled back. It was then that everyone heard it. A low rumbling growl came from the terrified boy, who was holding his chest. Everyone froze as Kaina moved the Yanagi to the door. Inko activated her quirk and yanked Izuku at her. She could see the terror on his face. But in his eyes, she saw a fire. She watched as they began to glow. He is scared, Riko called out. Like at the ranger station. Inko hugged him to her chest, holding him tight. Mommy is here, baby. Mommy is right here. No one is going to hurt you, baby. Inko started rubbing his back and rocking gently. No one will take you from me again, I promise. Just breathe, Izuku, breathe. Inko could feel his trembling. I love you, Izuku. I will be with you. I am not going anywhere. There was a low rumble from Izuku. She turned his face to her, and she could still see his eyes glowing. I am not going anywhere, she said firmly. She watched as the fire in his eyes flickered, and it slowly faded. Ryuko walked over and squeezed Izuku's hand. I will also do my best to help. Izuku smiled. While you were sleeping. After a small, tense moment when they had to draw blood, they were unsure what triggered Izuku's transformation other than fear. The Yanagi family had stayed for a few more hours before leaving and heading home. The parents watched as the two children hugged, with Ryuko promising to keep in touch and call him when she could. Izuku had fallen asleep with his head on Inko's lap, as Kaina had pulled Hisashi out to look at the blood sample. We don't have anything to compare it to, she said, leaning against the table. But we are getting an interesting reading from the sample. Does that look familiar? Hisashi looked at the reading. That's gamma radiation. He paused and stepped back. Why didn't the radiation sensors trip? That's the thing. We can read the energy they are giving off, but the levels are so small that they pass for natural. Kaina pushed off the table. You said that Izuku's quirk absorbed energy, but it was doing so at such a small amount. Could it be that we were absorbing gamma rays? It could be possible. They do occur naturally, but it is a minimal amount, so that would track. Hisashi ran his hand through his hair. So when the truck exploded, he absorbed all that gamma. It oversaturated his cells and triggered his transformation. Is there any way to test that theory? We can expose him to low-level gamma rays and see if his cells absorb it. We can mimic a naturally occurring source to keep him safe, Hisashi said, leaning over the sample again. But we don't know what will happen if we expose him to even more. It could trigger another transformation. He went missing for 1 month, and we have no idea where he was or what happened. We are piecing together that. But as we just started, she spread her arms out in exasperation. The investigation just started, and the military is already starting to breathe down our necks. Mrs. Yanagi is going to head up your civilian complaint against Talbot. What is going to happen, Kaina? He sighed. We need to figure out what his transformation is. Can he learn to control it? Kaina placed her hand on his shoulder. That is our end goal. He has to be able to control it. If not, they are going to try and lock him up and throw away the key or turn into some weapon where they trigger his transformation and drop him on an enemy. That could take years, Hisashi replied. Yes, she said, squeezing his shoulder. This is going to be a long road. There will be trials and tribulations, but I swear to you and Inko that I will be with you every step of the way. Thank you, Kaina, he said and embraced her. I don't know what we would do without you. Kaina returned the hug. Since Izuku had disappeared, she had been entwined with a family. She never had a family. She wanted to be a hero, but what she was doing wasn't hero-like. She was chosen for the Hero Commission Squad because, like the rest of the team, she had no family and no one who would come looking for her if she disappeared. She had gone to check on Inko after the accident. As Hisashi was in the hospital, it had been out of guilt. She felt guilty for failing to save Izuku. It was because when Izuku looked at her, he saw a hero. She was his hero. The way he looked at her was not something she was familiar with, but it was something she had dreamed about when she was young. The haunted look on Inko's face would have been enough to haunt her for the rest of her life. But it was Inko's resolve when her eyes would show defiance when she was told he was gone. The same eyes would flutter over the photos and linger on the ones of Izuku, the light shining while she held his blanket or a toy. The outright defiance when they told her to prepare a funeral. The way she would take to the streets looking for him. She would take Kaina's hand and tell her that he was alive. Maybe it was the guilt, but Kaina wanted to believe. She needed to believe. The way Izuku looked at her, the way he had whispered, plus ultra, it lived rent-free in her mind, as did the look of terror when she was yanked out of the vehicle, leaving him behind. Then the phone call came. He was alive. The road before her was unknown, dangerous, and possibly endless. She knew Hisashi and Inko wouldn't waver, and neither could she. Izuku looked at her as a hero and said she was a hero. No matter what, she would be his hero. Lady Nagant could be more than a name in a registry. She could be a hero. Izuku. The white room was, well, it was white. The only color in the room was him and his parents. Honestly, it was enough, though it was a little boring. His parents slept holding him. He was in his mom's lap, and she was in his dad's lap. It was nice, beyond excellent, but it was a bit boring. There was nothing to look at, nothing to keep his mind from wondering what had happened. When he started to get scared by the thought of Ryuko and her parents, he thought of Kaina, or, as she had whispered, Lady Nagant, his favorite hero. Like most children, his favorite had been All Might. But Lady Nagant was his new favorite after everything. Thinking of her made him feel safe. He was sad that he wouldn't see Ryuko again anytime soon, but she promised to call him. It was strange. She treated him so well. Not like the other kids in his class who treated him like he was quirkiness when he had a weak quirk. But his dad showed him he could still do good things in the world. He wanted to do good things in this world, but he had a burning question. Why am I being kept in this room? Izuku closed his eyes and thought. Why was he in this room? What happened to him? Images flooded his mind, the monsters swarming over him, trying to tear at his flesh. With a roar of anger, suddenly, big, muscular green arms grabbed one and slammed it into the ground. And then another was smashed away in annoyance. The pain from their initial attack was gone. They were still attacking him, but it didn't hurt anymore. It was strange. He was watching it all through someone else's eyes. He was this co-pilot. Not even that he was in the back seat watching through the windshield while someone else drove. Emotions crept in. Annoyance, anger, and rage. Soon, the strange monsters from the back of the truck were being destroyed by his bare hands, ripped limb from limb, callously destroyed. The way the things looked, at least, they seemed like monsters, like something from that late-night movie he shouldn't have watched and had given him nightmares. Then there was this tall, broad man with white hair and red eyes. How he looked at Izuku made him shiver. This was a bad person. Every instinct told Izuku this was the villain. Evil was standing there. Then they fought. And when the man grabbed his wrist, there was a pull. Izuku felt something being tugged on inside of himself. He didn't know what it was, but it was essential. He couldn't let it go. He wouldn't let it go. He could see it almost being pulled away till a giant green hand grabbed it and pulled it back. Again, emotions overwhelmed him. Possessive, defiant, and rage. Then there was the Thunder Man. The way he looked at Izuku, whose eyes were filled with disdain and outright dismissal. Izuku knew that look was how Kachan looked at him. How he looked at Izuku when he called him Deku, called him useless. It was a violation on Izuku's part to breathe the same air, be in the same room, dare to dream, and be a hero. Izuku didn't like that look. In fact, that look made him angry. It always made him angry. He felt that anger seeps out of him, and the thing reacted to it. It didn't like the look the man gave it, the command to kneel. Then the lightning struck. Annoyance was annoying and loud, so the thing sent the annoying thing away. Gunships, machine guns, Izuku flinched. All he felt was the rage that was all Izuku could feel. Rage. His vision began to cloud over with rage. Just leave me alone, he could hear it. The thing was screaming. It wanted to go away and be left alone. Then it all stopped. It was so chaotic, with flashes of different places, going to the seaside, being attacked by this giant monster, constantly moving and looking for peace. Till the cave. The cave was peaceful. The cave was safe. As the thing relaxed, Izuku felt it go to sleep. As it fell asleep, Izuku could feel the control shifting back to him. He was no longer the passenger, but instead, he was the driver. The thing was still in the back seat. It would shudder and stir, opening an eye to look out the window before going back to sleep. Izuku bolted upright. His sudden movement jostled his parents awake. He was sweating, and he looked around, comforted by the white room. In the dull white room, he felt his mother's arms squeezing him. He swore he could feel the thing's eyes open before shutting again. His voice sounded so far like he was underwater, but slowly, it became clearer. "Nightmare," Izuku said. He could feel her calming down, her relaxing. The creature in the back seat seemed to do the same. The transport. Izuku was happy when they brought him food. French toast sticks, eggs, and potatoes. He even ate his salad. Lady Nagant brought it to him, so that made it all better. She even sat with him and ate her own meal. And his parents had gone to shower and change clothes. "Can I go home now?" Izuku asked after summoning the courage. Lady Nagant stopped eating, setting her fork down, and folded her hands in her lap. "No, I am sorry, Izuku. You can't go home now." The monster opened one eye. "Why?" Izuku muttered, feeling sad and a bit scared. "Something happened in that explosion, Izuku," she said, taking his hand. "Something great because it saved your life, but also something that we need to try and understand so you can be safe." "The green monster," Izuku whispered. Nagant's eyes widened slightly. "Do you know about the green monster?" "I had a dream last night. I was watching it, angry." "It was so angry," Izuku said, trying to remember what he had seen. "Yes, Izuku. It is about that green monster, that hulking thing," she said, keeping her hand on his. "We think that you transformed into that after the explosion and again at the ranger station, when that idiot tried to take you away and hurt Ryuko." The monster's eyes were both open now. "Is it my quirk?" Izuku asked, hopeful. "We don't know. We think so." Nagant moved her food tray out of the way and pulled Izuku into her lap. "But we need to figure that out so you can be safe." She ran her fingers through his hair. "I want you to be safe. And if it is your quirk, how do you control it so other people will be safe?" "I swear to you, Izuku, I will be with you the entire time. I promise." "Pinky swear?" Izuku asked, holding out his pinky. If she pinky swore, it couldn't be broken. Everyone knew it was an unbreakable promise. Kainer wrapped her pinky around his. "I swear, Izuku, but it will take some time. We will move from here to another place where you will live while we figure this out." She could almost feel the anxiety in him building. "Your parents are going to be there. I am going to be there, and we will do everything we can to ensure you are safe. No white room, a real room with a television, and everything." She felt him relax. "Can you be strong for your parents and me?" Izuku nodded. He snuggled into Kaina's arms for a moment before they returned to eating. "After you eat and take a bath, we will leave here and drive to the new facility." "Okay," Izuku nodded as he returned to eating, and the beast returned to sleep. General Thunderbolt. He was in his hospital room when his aide Takumi stood at rest, positioning her arms behind her back, waiting for him to acknowledge her. When he nodded his head, she began. "Sir, it appears that Lieutenant Talbot has failed in his mission. The beast was spotted again at that location. According to the lieutenant's preliminary report, the Midoriya boy is the beast." "Explain," he responded, his mustache twitching. "The lieutenant reports that the boy transformed into the beast attacked him and fled the area." She handed a folder. "Major Brackies is reporting that a complaint has been filed against Lieutenant Talbot for illegal use of a quirk, assault and battery of 2 minors, false imprisonment, and attempted kidnapping. The Midoriyas have surrendered to the HSPC, particularly Lady Nagant, who was there. The HSPC has moved him to a secure facility for the night, and is planning on moving the boy again tomorrow to their main facility in Tokyo. They are reporting it as a quirk reaction." She went back to rest position. "Get me all the information you can on who found him. How they were able to stop him. I want it all," he ordered. Takumi saluted and exited the room. If that was his quirk, imagine if they harnessed it. He thought that this boy could shift battlefields and deter attacks with just the threat of unleashing him. This monster would be brought to heel, kept ready to be set out against the enemies of Japan. The HSPC was a joke. They couldn't contain the monster. He had to prove that Izuku Midoriya needed to be handled by military personnel headed up by himself. He could see it already. Little Yui was leading the division, able to deploy an armored response anywhere in the world. And the secret weapon of Izuku was at her beck and call. It was a simple plan. Find out how to trigger the monster and how to shut it down. The JDF would come in and take care of everything. He was putting a monster in the middle of Tokyo. Inconceivable. Tokyo. The room was sparse, but it seemed much more like a room than the bare white room he had been in. There was a bed, desk, table, chairs, a full bathroom, and just like she promised, a television. Thus began the long process of finding out what had happened to Izuku. Inko stayed in the room with him constantly. His father returned home to get them clothes and to bring a few things from the house to make Izuku feel more comfortable. Lady Nagant blushed slightly when Izuku asked if there was a stuffed version of her or an action figure his mother could buy for him. It was nothing she had ever concerned herself with, and something the HSPC never did as well. After all, she was just a name on a registry. Riko kept her word and called him on Inko's phone when she could. It was to check on him and talk about their days or a television show. Inko smiled as Izuku went out of his comfort zone, watching things about ghosts and other supernatural stuff so he could talk to her about it. The first 2 months were more of an adjustment period. The battery of tests was not Izuku's favorite, but they weren't too scary. Though he didn't like that they took blood every other day, he dealt with it. Usually, he was rewarded with a candy of some sort for his excellent behavior. It was about the 3-month part when a tutor started coming to see him. Her name was Miss Hiro, and she was not very tall, with long blonde hair done up in a pristine fishtail braid, blue sclera, and white irises. To Izuku, it looked like little boats floating on the ocean. She seemed very young but very nice. After meeting her, her smile put Izuku at ease. She never raised her voice with him, always keeping things light. She quickly lent a hand when he had trouble. Hina emerged from the room, waving goodbye. Her demeanor shifted as soon as the door closed, though a small smile still tugged at the corner of her lips. She left the false hospital corridor where her superiors were waiting to debrief her. Hina stepped in and was surprised to see the president of HSPC. The president was a middle-aged woman with a stoic and steely expression. She had a pair of turquoise eyes and ash blonde hair slicked back. She wore a black suit jacket and dress, a purple shirt, and a necklace. She looked up at some paperwork she had been signing before handing it off to an aide who scurried off. As per protocol, she was accompanied by Mr. Smith. His stereotypical man in black attire is perfectly crisp and clean, his face even the stoic mask. Lady Nagant was present, of course, as was Waif, which was unusual. Dr. Banner, Mr. Midoriya, and Dr. Package rounded out the group. The only person missing was Overwatch. Am I to wait for Overwatch? Hina asked, standing next to her chair. Overwatch will not be joining us today, the president said. Report. Izuku continues to adjust to the daily routine. His marks are good, and he rarely makes the same mistake more than once. He is diligent and overall a well-behaved child, Hina stated. Is that all? Waif asked. Any sign of the other? No, not that I have seen, but he has expressed a desire to play outside. I have made excuses, but they seem to be wearing thin, Hina responded. He is a child. They need to go outside, his father said. We can't keep him locked up forever. Dr. Midoriya, we have no idea what possible triggers for his transformation are, and with the limited tests we have been able to run, all we can say for certain is that his cells seem to absorb gamma rays as they naturally occur. Dr. Banner said, turning to face Hisashi. That alone does not explain the transformation. What are you suggesting, Dr. Banner? The president commanded his attention. We should introduce him to a non-naturally occurring amount and see it as a possible trigger for his transformation. Dr. Brian Banner, Ph.D., is a renowned American theoretical physicist known for his nuclear physics and gamma radiation expertise. He was a person of slight build, with brown hair and eyes. He was brought in as an additional expert in the field of gamma radiation. That is ridiculous, Hisashi said, his hand striking the table. I must agree with Dr. Midoriya, Dr. Ross said, her voice full of concern. The odds of Izuku encountering such a thing once he leaves this institution is astronomical. Dr. Lizzie Takage was the lead psychologist overseeing this case. Her long dark green hair hung down to the back of her knees when left free, but she normally would have it bun on the back of her head, held in place with a few writing instruments. She had these large, upturned, dusky green eyes. The oddity was how they betrayed her lizard quirk and the forked tail when she blinked. Also, I believe it will be in his best interest if he is allowed to go outside and interact with other children in some capacity. He has displayed an amazing amount of patience for a boy his age, and as of now, we are treading on the goodwill that Lady Nagant has earned with him. She added, I disagree, Dr. Takage. We need to proceed with more aggressive testing to further understand how, even with a quirk that we are assuming absorbed gamma radiation, he was still able to withstand and absorb such an amount so quickly without being killed, Dr. Banner argued. I would also like to look at the research into the storage units you could devise, Dr. Midoriya. Those are classified, Dr. Hisashi replied crisply. Well, Mr. Midoriya, the president said, leaning forward, her chin resting on her steeple fingers. As his father, I know my son. He needs to be able to go outside and play. His transformation was triggered by the first explosion, which I believe was a self-preservation reflex. The second was due to his desire to protect his friend and fear. I fear that continually exposing him to even more gamma radiation for no other reason than to see if he transforms is dangerous, he said, keeping his tone measured. Why would it be dangerous? She asked. Yes, it could trigger a transformation, which we can only hope to try and contain, or it could oversaturate his cells, causing cellular breakdown and leading to his death, Hisashi said, glaring at Dr. Banner. We surrendered to you, hoping he could learn to control his transformation to lead a normal life. Hiro? Hina thought. If his emotions, such as fear or even anger, can trigger a transformation, then wouldn't it be prudent to allow such simple things as playing outside to help maintain his present mental state? The president sat back and thought for a moment. Make arrangements for him to be outside. We can see how he reacts. Introduce him to some of the calmer children who come to the facility. Dr. Banner, we will limit the testing to what we have on hand. We will not be introducing any more gamma radiation to the boy. Though I would like to see if somehow absorbing the radiation from him would take away his transformation. Then without a reintroduction, could he lead a normal life? Dr. Takage, you are being placed in charge of his case now. Of course, any further testing will have to be signed off by his parents. Now excuse me. I have another meeting to attend. She stood up, as did everyone else, waiting for her and Mr. Smith to leave. All of you are missing the bigger picture, Dr. Banner huffed as she grabbed his files. Then why don't you enlighten us, Dr. Banner? Nagant said, having remained silent during the meeting. That child, regardless of his supposed quirk, should be dead. The amount of gamma radiation his cells would have absorbed is impossible. We need to find out how he survived. If it wasn't, then we need to know what happened. The answers are in that boy, and all these tests we are running are just about worthless, he replied angrily. Dr. Banner, may I remind you that the boy you are referring to is a living, breathing person? And this transformation you are so keen on triggering. How do you propose we handle that once he does transform? Nagin said, getting to her feet. I saw that Hulk tear apart creatures that killed members of our team, and it tore apart dozens. It then tossed around an unknown villain that seemed not only to have a strength quirk, but some shock absorption. It then tore apart 4 gunships, while taking not only sustained gunfire, but missile strikes as well. So tell me, Doctor, if you release that in the middle of Tokyo, how are we to explain to that little boy, once he calms down, that he hurt and probably killed hundreds, if not thousands of innocent bystanders, all because you wanted to make him transform? Fine, he seethed as he left that room. He is an asshole, Waif said, earning a few laughs. Thank you, Dr. Takich, Hisashi said, bowing to the woman. Call me Lizzie, she replied with a smile. I have a little girl about his age. She would have already gone crazy being in a room like that all the time. Well, Lizzie, call me Hisashi. And what is her name? Setsuna. But we call her Set. Dr. Benner. Idiots. They are all idiots. Do they not see the potential here? We may be able to replicate his transformation, an entire platoon of Hulks. The key is how the gamma was changed when created and stored in the containment units. If we can control the saturation levels, then we can create more. He returned to his rented apartment, poured himself a drink, sat down, and pulled out a piece of paper and his phone. Yes, hello, I would like to talk to Corporal Takumi. Tell her if it is Dr. Banner calling about her offer. Undisclosed location. General Thunderbolt walked down the long hall, ignoring the looks he received as he puffed on his cigar, Takumi at his back. They stopped at the door. He looked at the camera as it heard the mechanism unlock and slide open. They entered the darkened viewing room. A few white coats were there. They immediately stepped to the side, allowing the general to approach the glass. His brow furrowed in disgust at what he saw. Dr. Samuel Stearns had mutated. Gone were the brown hair and eyes, the normal-looking skin tone. It was now green. His skull had expanded to hideous proportions. It was rippled and molded like a giant brain, and you could see it pulsing in some areas. A rough estimate was it was 4 times the size of an ordinary person. Green hair hung from the sides in a wild look. None dare it seem to touch the mutated brain area. His eyes had grown more extensive. They were now green and nestled in an almost unnatural white field, making them stand out even more. Thunderbolt turned to the doctors. Report. Well, sir, as you can see, the prisoner has undergone a rather drastic mutation, the first doctor said in a nasal tone that irritated the general. At first, we wondered if his head would explode, but as you can see, that was not the case. Yes, several exams have revealed that while the skull is intact, it has fused in some ways with the outer surface of the brain. Hence, you can see it pulsing at times. The second one chimed in, his voice carrying the tone of ego. That he was more intelligent, and having to talk to other lesser than him was demeaning. His IQ has tested as high as those with intelligence-boosting quirks. Thunderbolt noted a hint of venom in that statement. Also, the subject has demonstrated that he possesses a photographic memory, something he didn't have before. Is he stable? Physically, that is? The general said, studying the person in the cell. Why, yes, the first doctor said. Though his brain may continue to expand as his intelligence increases, on a cellular level, he is stable. His quirk factor has increased, but because it was a minor intelligence booster and given his state, we believe the exposure to the gamma radiation mutated his cells and evolved his quirk as well, that the increased brain matter allowed his quirk to grow stronger, Dr. Tu said. Give your files on this matter to my aide and get out, he ordered. The 2 doctors handed over the files to his aide and left the room. He looked at Takumi as he placed her hand on the file, closing her eyes. He saw her eyes twitching behind her eyelids and waited patiently till she opened them. They didn't leave anything out. Sir, if this happened to him with a simple intelligence-enhancing quirk, Imagine what we could build with the right quirks, Thunderbolt grinned. First, we need the reports on the Midoriya boy and some more gamma rays. Thunderbolt walked over and pressed the intercom. Hello, Dr. Stearns. Ah, General, so nice to hear you again. Stearns turned to the mirror. Have you come to execute me? Not today, Stearns. You see, I would have agreed with you about the need to arm ourselves against those out there who conventional means. But you didn't come to me for that, did you? No, you wouldn't have paid me enough, Stearns replied, an uncomfortable smile spreading across his face. But now I see an opportunity to work together. Why would I do that? Because you're fascinated by what has happened to me. Stearns rose to his feet and ran his hands in an unsettling, sensual manner over his head. And you want to see if you can do it to others. Hisashi won't work with you. Only a handful of others could understand our work, and none are Japanese citizens. You don't like to share, do you, General? Stearns made a sweeping bow. Thunderbolt was surprised he didn't fall over with that massive head on his shoulders. Here is the deal, Stearns. You are going to work for me, Thunderbolt said. By doing so, you won't get put in some dark hole somewhere till you die. And also, you don't get executed for treason. I guessed as much, General. When do I start? Stearns kept his head bowed so the General didn't see the Cheshire grin across his face. The family grows. Izuku had just finished his class work when the door opened, and in walked his hero. He noticed she had a red bouncy ball tucked under her arm. Are you all done? She asked with a smile. Izuku looked to Hina, hoping that this all meant what he thought it meant. Hina nodded and smiled. Then why don't you put on your shoes, and we can go play? Nagant said, bouncing the ball. Inko was sitting on the bed, knitting and smiling at how Izuku lit up brightly. Okay, Wanasan, he shouted, grabbing his shoes. Kinda froze, the ball tumbling from her hands, her cheeks rosy. Inko's gentle laughter made her blush even more. I always wished for more children, Musume-san. Inko's voice was teasing, but Kaina could also feel the love. Kaina felt like a young child again, not a trained fighter. She just smiled, and when Izuku came out, she took his hand in hers and walked with him to play. Unknown location. General, Takumi said once they were alone. Yes, Lieutenant, he turned and looked at his aide. General, I have to ask, why work with Stearns? Takumi asked. Developing these things. While normally I would demote you for daring to ask such a question, I believe that you should know. The general took a long drag from his cigar. After the uprising and war that broke out in South America, it became apparent that we are woefully unprepared should All Might endeavor decide that they will dictate where we will go. Also those things reported at the base attack. He sighed. By all reports and what little footage we could obtain in their regards, I believe they are unnatural. With their defeat, I believe the one who is responsible will seek to improve them. HSPC agents, while not military trained, are formidable and capable most of the time. Of the squad that responded, only 4 made it out alive. I believe that number would be 0 if not for the appearance of that monster. Gamma weapons have the potential to stop even All Might should he go on a rampage, and to defend us from those homunculi from the base attack, and to protect Japan should another country decide to cross our borders with hostile intentions. He said, Sir, aside from the South American incident, there hasn't been a war in over 100 years, Takumi said. All it takes is one incident to change that, Thunderbolt replied. And I, for one, am not about to leave the security of this nation in the hands of the costumed idiots who are more interested in peddling hair products than stopping crime. You see the difference between the police and the heroes and them to us. We will not only be able to protect our nation should the worst occur, but we will allow those who did not win the genetic lottery to protect the streets and do more to guide this country in the future. All the power rests in the hands of a few, and when that happens, they are reluctant to surrender that power. With quirks getting more and more out of hand. I understand, General, she gave a crisp salute. I appreciate your explanation. As a soldier, once the order is given, you are expected to carry out that order on the belief that your commanders are acting on the best information and believe that this is the best course of action, Thunderbolt said, resuming his walk down the hall. What we are embarking on is that for you to complete this mission, you must understand the goal we are striving for. And the monster? Takumi replied. When he runs free, we will arrest him, Thunderbolt said. For now, let the HSPC deal with it. We have work to do. Yes, Dr. Brian Banner has reached out and would like to come on board, she added. Good. Let's see that it happens, the general said with a smile. Izuku and his sister. Nope, Izuku shook his head. No way, I am not going to eat them. Kana looked at the Brussels sprouts on his plate. They are good for you, Izuku. They smell terrible, like when Montfrey farts. Izuku held his nose and pushed the plate away. Kana stifled a laugh. How about I eat half, and you eat half so we can both get dessert? Izuku looked at her dubiously. Please, Kana hit him with the big eyes. Fine. They both lifted one and shoved it in their mouths. Kaien spit hers out first, followed quickly by Izuku. That is gross, she yelled. I told you, Izuku said. She would sneak him dessert later and get scolded by Inko for doing so. Kiana couldn't have been happier. Judgment. Lieutenant Talbot, never in the 35 years that we have sat on this tribunal have we ever seen such a blatant and flagrant disregard of conduct and military law regarding the usage of quirks against non-combatants. Not only did your actions escalate a situation, but you are also responsible for 125 million yen in damages and rising. Judge Ito said, You have disgraced yourself and the institution you swore to defend. You are now sentenced to 35 years incarceration, with a possibility of early release. You will be stripped of your rank and, upon release, be dishonorably discharged. The judge turned to Amiko and Inko. We find in favor your complaint, and will award you the total compensation you requested. 50 million yen to the Yanagi and 85 million to the Midoriya. I hope that both of your children will be able to move past this trauma and lead healthy and productive lives. This tribunal is adjourned. She banged her gavel. Inko and Amiko watched as Talbot was led from the courtroom in chains. The man stared at them defiantly as he was led away. Talbot was silent as he was shackled, silenced, and loaded into the transport. Inside, he was a ball of rage, wanting to scream at those damn judges. He was lost in his world till the transport stopped. When the door opened, he expected to see a military prison. Instead, he saw a troop transport. He was dragged and loaded aboard the transport. He tried to protest, but the guards ignored his muffled words. He noticed that he wasn't the only prisoner. There was the man seated across from him who had shaggy light brown hair and eyes, and was not Japanese. What are you in for? He yelled, smirking at the muffled response. Wow, that sucks, he laughed. He listened. Blonsky. Emil Blonsky. When the transport landed and the ramp lowered, Talbot was surprised to see Thunderbolt standing there. Once they were led off the transport, one of the general's soldiers stepped forward and removed Talbot's shackles and gag. Hello, Lieutenant, Thunderbolt said. General, not that I am not happy to see you. Talbot rubbed his wrists. But where are we, and why am I here? Well, Lieutenant, you can either serve your time rotting in a cell or come work for me. The choice is yours, Thunderbolt gnawed on his cigar. If you prefer, I can put you back on that transport. I would rather work for you, sir, Talbot said quickly. Good, you may have messed up big-time soldier, but you are a damn good enlisted man, and I do not leave my men behind, Thunderbolt said. He looked to Blonsky, who was still shackled. Russian-born, English-raised, former British Special Forces, now mercenary for hire. They picked you up, trying to walk away with some important papers. Well, you know, Blonsky shrugged. Why am I here, General? I want you to do what you do, Thunderbolt replied. But I was hoping you could do that for me. I read your file, soldier. I know why they discharged you, and you did the right thing. I won't put you in that position. So do you want a place to belong or to keep running? All I have ever wanted to do was belong, sir, Blonsky said. I accept, General. Like holding water in a closed fist. Sir, she has refused another mission, the president of the HSPC. Yes, I read the report, Overwatch replied as he looked over the city. If her attachment to the boy is the problem, then she must be reminded why he needs the commission's protection. Are we to arrange an incident then? The president took a seat. Yes, we will have her take an assignment. Make sure she understands that refusal is not an option. Overwatch glanced over his shoulder. Get the parents out of here for a few days. That will be difficult, the president replied. We must arrange it so the parents believe that Nagant will be here and vice versa. We will arrange for the incident to occur in the open, away from the facility, Overwatch said. Once he is recovered, it will be the end of this nonsense from the boy wanting to leave the facility. Nagant will realize that she needs our help to keep him safe. And if she wants to continue receiving that assistance, she needs to work. Where are we sending her? The president responded. I believe we should send her after target #72, Overwatch said. Then have her escort him to Tartarus as a reminder of where her precious little brother may end up without our protection and assistance. Nezu. Nezu looked at his phone, puzzled. It was not the call that he had expected. I can say with great certainty that you are the last person I expected to call me today, he answered. I wouldn't call you unless I felt there were no other options, the unexpected caller said. You know that. Then why are you calling? He said. I need your help, they said. If you don't help, then a whole lot of people are going to die, and a young child is going to be locked in a cage and never let go. And you know what that is like. Why not turn to your friends at the HSPC? Nezu said that. Though he kept the mocking tone from his voice for the most part, he was unable to keep it entirely from his tone. You can always go fuck yourself, Nezu, the caller said. You choose the path you are on the same as I. Now, are you going to be a petty asshole? If so, then we are done here. I apologize, Nezu said. I understand you wouldn't be calling if there wasn't a reason behind it, or if you had another recourse. Please explain. Thank you, the caller said. In 3 days, a boy will be taken from the facility in Tokyo under the guise of transporting him to an outside excursion. The commission plans for an event to occur that will trigger the child's quirk. In the resulting chaos of attempting to wrangle the boy in a battle in the middle of the city will occur, and many people will be hurt if not killed as a result. First question, Nezu interrupted. What is this child's quirk? They don't know, and neither do I, the caller said. Before you ask, the boy quirk is some energy collection. They believe the child absorbs gamma radiation. An incident occurred where the boy was exposed to unprecedentedly high levels of gamma radiation that should have killed him. Instead, it triggered what they believe to be a secondary quirk, where the boy transformed into a large, dangerous green hulking creature. What made this dangerous? Nezu asked. The boy was not in control when this transformation occurred and reacted in what can be described as a simplistic to animalistic state, the voice said. He engaged in battle with a high-ranking, powerful unknown entity, an unknown homunculi upon his initial emergence. After that, he battled with members of the JDF, including an Alpha-class registered lightning quirk and multiple gunships. After achieving victory, he fled. The boy re-emerged a month later, lost in the mountains, with no memories of the transformation or actions they had taken. Is this the green humanoid that appeared on the highway some months ago? Nezu said. Yes. And this thing you are saying is a child quirk? Nezu asked in disbelief. Yes. What triggers this transformation? Nezu asked as he pulled up the images. The trigger seems to be an emotional response, the voice said. It appears to manifest when the child is scared. It is believed that anger will also trigger the transformation. So the HSPC is planning on unleashing this boy in the middle of Tokyo, Nezu said. They hope his fear will keep him indebted to them after they bring him in, allowing them to use him for their own devices, as he will be eternally grateful to them for stopping him, and afraid of what will happen if he runs free again. Yes, I believe that is the case, the voice said. He had a positive experience with the hero in the video. Lady Nagant, Nezu said, looking at the video. Yes, she was able to talk him down. The two have also formed a sibling relationship by becoming family members. The voice paused. She has been refusing assignments as of late and taking more time to pursue heroics outside of the assignments given by the HSPC. So this will reign over her as well, as the HSPC will be the only organization that keeps her little brother safe, Nezu said with a great sigh. I am assuming that they are forcing Lady Nagant to take a mission that will put her out of the area. The children's guardians will be under the assumption that he will be with Nagant, giving them the peace of mind that their child will be safe, allowing them to leave to attend some personal or business matters. Yes, that is what I believe to be happening as well, the voice said with a slight tone of defeat. Now, I assume he has high regard for Lady Nagant. Is his like of heroes limited to only her, or are there others he has expressed interest in? Nezu pondered. He seems to love heroes in general, but he is a young child, the voice answered. He seems to respond to women very well. His mother and a young girl his age have been able to calm him down. He does not react negatively to men, if that is any help. I believe I can work with that, Nezu said. Thank you, the voice said. Goodbye. The line went dead. Nezu sighed. He thought reminders of past mistakes were the devil's best torments. Inevitable. It was only a matter of time. The odds were that something would happen eventually, and the monster or Hulk would emerge. Izuku had started to become restless over the year he had been held at the facility. There had been no incidents since he was brought to the facility, and being allowed to play outside of his containment cell with some of the other children helped. But hearing how they were allowed to leave the facility had become troublesome. He wanted to leave the facility as well, constantly being told maybe next weekend or not. This time had begun to frustrate him to no end. When he was finally told he would go out, he was overjoyed at the thought. No thoughts of treachery or ulterior motives crossed his mind, believing they all had his best interests at heart. It didn't dawn on him that his parents wouldn't be with him. They had returned home to finalize the sale of their home as they were relocating to Tokyo, or that Kaina wasn't going to be with him as she had been called away on emergency hero work. He was just excited about going outside. He had been watching the commercials for Godzilla vs. All Might, so when they told him that he would get to go to the movies, eat lunch at Hero World, and stop for ice cream on the way home, he was over the moon. He sat waiting in his homemade Nagant hoodie, his blue jeans and shoes waiting. He wished that Miss Hiro would come with him, but she couldn't, so he stuck with Mr. Smith. Mr. Smith was fine but quiet. He didn't know any good jokes, but he would at least smile. Izuku climbed into the SUV and buckled his seatbelt, his All Might backpack next to him. He kicked his feet in excitement. Being outside the walls of his normal containment area was so exhilarating that he couldn't stop smiling. Then everything went wrong. Izuku looked out the window at the buildings and streets passing by. He smiled as he saw the city for the first time, all the interesting people and mutations, and even catching glimpses of some heroes on patrol. When a van ran a light, he pointed and asked a million questions, and his world exploded into chaos. The sudden impact would be something that Izuku would never forget. The way that everything slowed down, the sudden rush of fear, and the violent impact that caused the SUV to roll. He could see the glass break and heard the metal creak and bend, and Mr. Smith crumbled into dust in his seat, unmoving. The seat belt failed, and his little body slammed around the vehicle. Pain flooded him. The monster in his mind roared as Izuku's world went black. People screamed as chaos took over. The tumbling car slammed into and over another vehicle, and pedestrians scrambled for cover as the van careened off another car and slammed into the side of a building. Some people started to move towards the chaos and called for help. The SUV shook, causing the first responders to pause, and then it exploded open, and the roar that came with it seemed to silence everything. People fell back from the explosion of car parts, staring in horror as the Hulk emerged. Its footsteps shook the ground. It glared around at all the people surrounding it and roared a challenge. People began to scream and flee. When its mighty fist swung, it sent an abandoned car skidding across the intersection, slamming into and toppling a traffic signal. The occupants of the first vehicle called for help and screamed in terror as the beast stalked towards them. A local hero ran, summoning all the courage they could muster. They jumped off their 10-speed with a mighty cry of "Justice Crash" and sent it crashing into the back of the green beast. The hero leaped and twisted as they flipped over, positioning themselves between the terrified civilians and the strange beast, landing with the classic superhero tradition. The hero is a young man of average height and weight. He wears an armored suit with brown armor covering his torso and shoulders. Underneath the armor, he has a black leather suit, black gauntlets, and knee pads. He also wears a green bicycle helmet and dark-shaded goggles. Additionally, he has short brown hair and oval-shaped glasses that obscure his eyes. "Not another step," the man proclaimed as he adopted a classic boxer's pose. "The Justice Rider will not allow you to harm anyone else." Cries of joy erupted at the arrival of Justice Rider, a street-level hero known for his strong sense of justice, caring personality, and mighty riding ability. He once stood between a gang and a local shop owner, battling all 8 members and not allowing them to enter the shop. Then there was the time he chased down a runaway bus on his mighty Justice bike, or saved 3 puppies from a raging stream. "Justice Rider, help," came a call from the crushed vehicle. "We are trapped. My wife and daughter are hurt. Please, hero." "Never fear, citizen, help is on the way," Justice Rider said. "I will keep you safe until then. Now, sir, I ask that you stand down and surrender to the call of justice." The Hulk turned and looked over his shoulder, then kicked the Justice bike away, sending it flying through the air and embedding it in the 4th story of a nearby building. "No, Justice bike," Justice Rider called out. "Man, I just got it out of the shop," he muttered. The Hulk stepped forward. "I warned you, foul beast, in the name of justice," he called out. "Justice punch." The hero pushed off the ground, leaping forward, pulled back their fist, camera phones recording, and delivered a mighty Superman punch that would have leveled a lesser foe. Still, today, justice collided with the Hulk. The punch landed flush on the cheek, and with a sickening crack, the hero's hand crumpled and broke. He fell back, and the crowd gasped as the hero stumbled, holding their broken hand. "I see you are tough, but justice will not be felled so easily today," he said. "I didn't want to do this, but you have left me no choice." The hero stepped back and took a crane pose. A hush fell over the battlefield. "I warn thee, beast, not another step unless you wish to fall this day." The Hulk growled as a small voice screamed nonsense in its mind. The Hulk stepped forward with a grace that would forever imprint on those there that day, stirring a young girl's heart with a rabbit quirk, and even bringing one man to tears. Justice Rider bounced forward and pushed off the ground. "Justice crane kick of devastation," he roared. The rising kick landed true, and the beast's head moved. Of its own volition, the hero's foot didn't break, but did fracture. He landed, seeing his opponent still standing, hiding the tears of pain behind his glasses, took to the air again. Justice spin. A mighty spin kick of justice collided with the best. Its head did not move. Its annoyance flashed. Before the hero could land or register the broken bone in his leg, a mighty backhand sent the hero flying, crashing to the pavement. He bounced and rolled to a stop against the same building that held his mighty Justice bike. The air was sucked out of the crowd. As the Hulk continued towards the car, people began to scream and throw objects, hoping to not only distract the Hulk, but to allow Justice Rider to rise once again. The Hulk grabbed the top of the vehicle and tore it open like one would tear a piece of paper. The man inside the car activated his quirk, sending a barrage of rainbows toward the Hulk. People screamed as the beast reached in and tore away pieces of metal, lifting an unconscious child. It turned and set the child gently to the ground before doing the same with the mother. The man flinched when the massive hand tore their seatbelt free. It turned to the stunned crowd, and with a quick hop, it landed at the van that was the cause of everything. It tore the door off, expecting to see a driver, but instead, there was only a mechanical apparatus attached to the steering wheel, with a rapid beeping sound and the scream of the little voice in its head. The Hulk grabbed the van and crumpled it against its body as it exploded. The Hulk growled in annoyance. "Whoa there, big guy." A voice came from the sky. Looking up, a boy with light blue wavy hair swept back above his head, with 2 ear-length tuft handing down was above the scene riding a cloud. Dressed in the standard light gray blazer with dark turquoise trimmings over a white dress shirt and red tie, he screamed to everyone here that he was a student at UA and hadn't come alone. As the cloud landed, he was accompanied by another boy dressed the same way, with shaggy black hair and a tired expression. There was a mirror opposite to the cloud rider, and with them was a girl wearing the girl uniform, but her top was unbuttoned to a rather inappropriate level. Her skirt was hiked up. Her back hair was pulled back in a ponytail. Her face held a pout as she crumbled about not being in her hero costume. "No, stay back," Justice Rider said, struggling to his feet, not only to collapse from his self-inflicted injuries, but from the ones suffered from when the Hulk struck him. "It will be all right," a small chimera creature said, placing its paw on the hero's shoulder. "You're the principal of UA," Justice Rider said. Nezu smiled. "That I am. Those students can distract the creature as we get these people to safety. All Might is on his way." Nezu turned to some of the civilians and gave an order. They lifted Justice Rider, carrying the hero to safety, as the pro-hero Cementos began to erect barriers, ordering people away. "Loud Cloud, get the injured away," he called as he walked towards the Hulk. "Roger that," the boy responded. A cloud formed around the injured mother and daughter, lifting them up and out of the area. The boy with black hair ran to the man, slipping his arm over his shoulder to help him evacuate. 2 armored response units from the JDF arrived before the barriers shutting them out were erected. Nezu saw the soldiers come out carrying strange black rifles with a tube running from them to a strange device on their back. The top of the vehicle was what appeared to be some pulse cannon. Their rapid response and strange armament concerned Nezu. It told him that they were also here for the child. He quickly deduced that it must have been from the incident on the freeway. He had been concerned that the military had shown up at the incident so quickly. He had surmised that they were in pursuit of the creature. The girl took a deep breath, pulled a bullwhip behind her back, and strolled to the Hulk. "Well, hello there, big boy," she licked her lips seductively. "You know I have a thing for Midnight, 8-year-old boy." The boy with black hair yelled as he eyed the beast warily. "Oh right," she snapped her fingers. "Sorry, erase her head. I saw all the muscles and got carried away." "Fall back," a soldier yelled as they spread out, getting into precise firing positions. The Hulk growled, stomping its foot, making everyone stumble. Eraserhead hair floated up as his quirk activated. The beast stumbled, grabbing its head. Then it roared, looking around and locking eyes with the UA student. Eraserhead had to blink, his quirk cutting off. Loud Cloud came diving down, tackling his friend to the ground as a car bumper came flying at them. "Take it out," came the call. The weapons came to life as green energy ripped from them. Midnight dived for cover. The Hulk stumbled slightly before it grabbed what was a piece of the van and threw it into the armored vehicle, nearly cutting it in half. Midnight tried to move, only for a stray shot to strike near her, sending her back to the ground. Nezu called for them to stop firing. His call was ignored. Large spherical devices were thrown toward the Hulk. The first exploded with black spikes with a strange green hue. As the grenade blast exploded out, they tore into the flesh of the Hulk, seemingly hurting it. But that wasn't all. They tore through the vehicles and Midnight's leg as well. As did her friends, the girl screamed, seeing more projectiles in the air. Midnight covered her head as they exploded. Nezu saw everything in slow motion, the explosion, the spikes flying towards his student. But he also saw the beast move. Midnight saw death coming for her. She braced for the end, only for it to never come. She opened her eyes, and over her was the beast that had sheltered her from the explosion. Everyone watched as the smoke cleared to see the Hulk over her, the spikes pushing out its body as it healed at an incredible rate. Nezu noticed that it was also larger. Midnight looked into the monster's eyes. She was amazed to see such caring for a moment, and then she saw it turn to rage. "No, wait," she called as it turned, and, with a blinding speed, slammed into his second armored vehicle, tearing it apart, grabbing the gun from the top, and destroying it. Eraserhead activated his quirk again, hoping it would stop the beast. Instead, the creature's pulse of green energy forced him to shut his eyes. Nezu saw the pulse explode out, but when Eraserhead's quirk shut off, he saw it absorb back into the beast. The soldiers opened fire, and the creature tore into them, crashing through the cement barriers that sprung up in its way. It grabbed the rifles from them, tearing them away, snapping limbs as it destroyed their weapons. Chaos filled the area again as the beast could not stop taking out the soldiers. Nezu noticed that despite the creature's immense strength, it could have turned those mean into pulp, but it was simply removing their weapons. When one threw a grenade at the beast, it caught it in its hand and let it explode. When its massive fist opened, the spikes tumbled to the ground. It flicked the soldier in the chest with its finger, sending him flying. Loud Cloud sprang into action, surrounding the beast in a thick cloud and trying to lift it away from the battle. Everyone was thrown to the ground when a massive thoom was heard, and the cloud was blown away. The creature was standing there with its hands together as it had just clapped them together. Nezu stared at the creature as it scanned the area. Its gaze turned back to Midnight, who had bandaged her leg. It took a step towards her. Suddenly, "That is far enough, foul beast," a booming voice from the sky yelled. "All Might no," Nezu screamed. "Detroit smash," All Might yelled as he came down, landing his blow across the creature's jaw, jerking it violently to the side. The Hulk stumbled as blood flew before it regained its balance. "My, you are a tough one." A lightning combination followed by an uppercut that lifted the Hulk off its feet, sending it flying away and crashing into the containment barriers. "But you are done." There was a growl as the Hulk reached its feet, spitting out a tooth. The creature grinned. Nezu noticed that it seemed to hear something that annoyed it. "I guess you are not done, but that means I just have to hit you harder," All Might yelled. "Ohio smash." The number one hero jumped forward, ready to end the fight. His fist tore through the air, only to meet a massive green palm. The impact shook the area. The Hulk moved back a fraction of an inch, an enormous grin across its face. "Uh-oh." The Hulk's hand closed around All Might's fist with a sickening crunch, as its other hand landed a mighty blow to the hero's stomach, driving all the air from the number one hero. But the Hulk wasn't done as it turned and slammed All Might over its head into the ground. It yanked the hero up and did it again. Blood flew from All Might's mouth as he tried to free itself from the beast's grip. Now, All Might had been hit hard before, but when the creature threw him away, only to yank him back into a straight right, he was hard-pressed to remember when. When the Hulk went to yank him back again, All Might twisted in the air and landed a kick to the Hulk's face. drove his elbow down into the Hulk's forearm, breaking it, and his broken hand was freed. He landed and speared the Hulk back. He dug his hands into the creature's ribs as he attempted to hoist it up to slam it. To the crowd's surprise, a double axe handle smash ended that. The Hulk punted the hero away so hard he tore through the cement barriers and into a building. The Hulk roared, screamed at the hole the hero made. A hush fell, only for All Might to explode out and land a left hook, rising knee, that lifted the Hulk into the air. All Might jumped and grabbed the Hulk by the leg, spinning like a top. Oklahoma slam. The Hulk came crashing down through the street, and there was silence. All Might landed, raising his fist as a sign of victory. The crowd cheered wildly. Nezu put his ear to the ground. He didn't even have a chance to shout a warning as two massive hands broke through the ground, grabbing All Might around the ankles like a bad horror movie. All Might was yanked underground. The ground shook as the unseen battle raged, and then a massive roar from the beast, and the #1 hero emerged from the underground, not of his own volition, arching high into the air. All Might crashed into the 25th story of the Nerby office building. The Hulk climbed out of the hole, raising its head to the sky. It roared in triumph. "Izuku," Nezu called out as he approached hesitantly. "I need you to calm down." The Hulk glared and took a swipe at Nezu. Though the principal could dodge the attack, the wind pressure sent him tumbling. Loud Cloud and Eraserhead jumped into the attack, and again, the Hulk clapped its hands together, sending them flying away. It began to stalk towards them, and when encased in 2-foot-thick cement, it tore out with little effort. "Help me," Midnight called out. "Izuku, I need you to save me." Nezu froze as he saw his student reaching out towards the creature. "Help, Izuku," she pleaded again. Nezu watched as the Hulk turned and hopped to her side, lifting her gently in his arms. "I need you to take me to UA, so I will be safe," she said. "Please." Nezu watched as the Hulk held her protectively. "That way," Midnight said. "No, Nemi," Eraserhead yelled. Midnight held her hand out as he went forward, telling him to stop. "Ignore them, Izuku. Please rescue me," she said, touching the creature's cheek. The Hulk roared. It crouched before he leaped up and away, heading towards the southwest. "Nezu, we must go after her," Loud Cloud yelled. "Why didn't you stop her?" "She was getting him away from the civilian population," Nezu said as All Might landed, ready for another round. "Where has he gone?" All Might yelled. "He took Midnight and fled that way," Eraserhead said, pointing to the southwest. "She is trying to lead him to UA. Thank you, young man. I will intercept them." All Might went to leave, only for Nezu to stop him. "Take me with you," Nezu said. "You two follow behind. Cementos see to the area." Nezu landed on All Might's shoulder as they took off through the air. Midnight. She had made a gamble, and it seemed to work. As they flew through the air, she marveled at the massive strength this creature, this Hulk, possessed. The way it cradled her protectively with each leap was a somewhat breathtaking way to travel. She discreetly let slip some of her gas. She saw the creature inhale it. Its eyes softened before they refocused. She kept guiding the beast towards the school, sending a message to Recovery Girl that she was coming in injured and with a possible hostile. With each leap, they got closer. She pointed the way when the creature looked lost, thanking him for saving her. Once she saw the edge of the city, she led him to the athletic field, where he landed before the staff. The Hulk growled and wrapped Midnight in both arms, turning her away from them. "Thank you for saving me, Izuku," she said. "But it is time for me to save you." Her quirk erupted from her, enveloping them in a thick pink cloud. She heard him growl and stumble. "It's okay now, I am safe, thank you," she said, her hand on his cheek. "Sleep," she whispered as the creature's eyes closed. She knelt beside him, staring in amazement as the massive green creature disappeared, and a young boy with green hair lay asleep on the grass. "You're safe now, Izuku," she whispered as she pulled his head into her lap. I will protect you now." She saw him smile and relax.